Hello summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan and we'll be talking about our predictions for the 15 most broken champions on patch 12.9. One of the most important things in a constantly evolving game like League of Legends is to be able to adapt with the meta, and that's why we're here for you. If you want to know what's going to be OP before the patch even hits, you'll be ready to hit the ground running without even having to test if one buff or nerf really made that much of a difference. And if you don't know how to play any of these OP picks or you're just a little bit rusty, this will give you a few days to brush up on them in some normals or on a smurf. Before we get started, I just want to say that this list is not in any particular order. It's just a list of champions that we predict will be some of the strongest, most influential picks in the patch. We'll start off by talking about Ahri. Riot is once again showing that with some champions, they really like to tiptoe when it comes to handing out nerfs. While Ahri's ultimate is definitely what makes her broken, nerfing the cooldown by a measly 10 seconds isn't going to be doing much. Especially when you consider that after you calculate ability haste and the ultimate hunter, it's really just like an extra 5 seconds. If they actually wanted to nerf her, they'd go after the window of time that she has to get a reset before the ultimate falls off. She's still very likely to be one of the best, most consistent mid laner when played well. Whether you're trying to learn to abuse the broken champions on this list or how to deal with them when you end up on the wrong side of the matchup, if you want to speed up that process, you should check out ProGuides.com. We have courses from all your favorite streamers and pros like Core JJ, Aframu, and Xmithy to really help you understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized experience, we have coaches available 24/7, ready to help you guys become the best. Our coaches are top tier players that have spent years climbing the solo queue ladder to get where they are now, and they're ready to share everything that they've learned with you. Anyway, let's get back on topic, shall we? Another champion where the nerfs are probably going to miss the mark just by a bit is Rengar. A super fast clear definitely helps a jungler perform better, but just going after his W's bonus damage against monsters isn't really going to change how hard Rengar carries after his recent buffs. I mean, it's not like Rengar is only broken in the jungle. When you understand how to trade against different foes and have the mechanics to pull him off, he's also a disgusting top laner. So maybe it's more about how broken his kit is as a whole rather than just how fast he can get through his first jungle clear. Renate Glass is also probably going to be largely unaffected by the nerfs that she's getting. I mean, when you think about what makes Renate OP, is the first thing that comes to your mind her tankiness or the damage that she adds or trades with her passive? For me, it's either her W giving allies a chance to defy death while being a basic ability, or her ultimate's ridiculous impact on teamfights. With those two abilities left ignored, she's going to continue to be an extremely powerful champion, arguably the very best enchanter in the game. Next up we have Olaf. The power of the champion after a mid-scope update like this can be pretty unpredictable, since there's a lot of changes happening. But our initial prediction is that he's going to be really strong, at least in certain situations. It's really nice that they aren't just throwing big number buffs at Olaf. In his current state, he's unbearable when he's strong. Instead, they're actually adding some skill expression to him. Timing his W's new shield, or to make sure to auto any nearby champions to keep his ultimate rather than just popping every cooldown and right-clicking the enemy ADC should really make him feel a little bit less brainless to play. Talia's mid-scope update has her looking pretty strong as well, with her seemingly making a return as a mid laner. While she's losing a bit of her one-shot ability when you land her full combo, her Q doing AoE damage should make her a super dominant laner. She's also just getting better overall functionality, with her E not just doing extra damage against foes, but also stunning them. This makes matchups against certain champions like Yasuo or Irelia a lot more playable for her. Now that we've covered what's new, let's take a look at something that isn't. Riven is one of the very best performing champions in the game, but remains completely untouched for yet another patch. I used to tell myself it wasn't worth the hundreds of hours it takes to get good at Riven, but at this point, I wish I would have done it. We're almost halfway through the season, and there hasn't been a single day where she wasn't an absolute 1v9 monster. Another champion that's remaining entirely untouched is Senna. While she hasn't been reigning nearly as long as Riven, she's definitely just as dominant in her role. In a different bot lane meta, where the kill lanes are more popular, she wouldn't be nearly as much of a problem. If you nip her in the bud early, she's a pretty useless champion. The problem is most bot lanes are so passive right now that she's very consistently getting a high soul count early on and snowballing into becoming incredibly strong in the mid and late game stages. No amount of healing and shielding by other support matches the huge amount of damage that she's able to pump out in fights. While she's definitely a little bit too strong right now, I'm personally happy that she's at least strong in what I consider the right role. I think the game is overall much healthier when Senna is a support, not ADC. And that brings us to today's question of the day. Which role do you think Senna is healthiest or best at? Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below, and now without further ado, let's get back into the video. With Riot, there's often a certain reluctance to allow some champions to be even close to viable in solo queue. Look at Aphelios. While he has always been overall a pretty popular pick in pro play since his release, he's pretty much always been awful in solo queue, with a massively negative win rate anywhere outside of the top of the ladder. But then you have champions like Jhin. He's pretty much always really good, or at least pretty well above average. When they nerfed Gale Force, he fell down just by a bit, but still was at least an A tier pick. But that wasn't enough for Riot, and they immediately gave him some big compensation buffs on patch 12.8. And what do you know? He's right back to being one of, if not the very best ADC in the game. Next up we have Kayle. Without any direct changes to the champion herself, she's sort of just been creeping back up in the meta. She's between a 53 and a 54% win rate in both solo lanes. Anytime a hyperscaling champion is performing well, you know something isn't quite right. So with that being said, I think Riot needs to target her early game to make her a little bit more of a high-risk pick to lock in. On a pretty similar note, we have Vladimir. He was already doing perfectly fine, so Riot of course decided to slap 4 extra armor on him on patch 12.8. Even if Vladimir was doing poorly, buffing his early game isn't the right way to go about it. Like I said with Kayle, a hyperscaling champion shouldn't be able to do so consistently well. Instead, maybe make them a risky pick that could completely 1v9 if they survive the early and mid game. Not every broken champion is a 1v9 carry though. Sometimes it's just about being able to consistently do your job, like with volleybar. There's pretty much no mechanical skill required to play this champion, so literally anybody can pick him up and play him, using his ridiculously strong early dueling power to bully most other junglers out of the picture. Aside from his dueling, he also has some pretty scary ganks, with his ultimate allowing you to pull off some easy tower dives without the risk of botching them since you can literally turn them off. Another jungler that makes the list is Shyvana. For years now, I've considered her one of the very worst picks in the game. I'm just not a huge fan of full AP Shyvana. Only being useful around her ults, and then just only using a single ability in that window just sort of makes a flop of a champion. But with her new tanky bruiserish build, you can go in with the dragon form and cause terror. This carries super hard in the mid game, but it's worth noting that if the game goes super late, hyper carries still shred you once they have 6 items. If you're an ADC main looking for an OP champion that is able to actually get agency on their own in the bot lane, then look no further than Lucian. Anytime ADCs get a big blanket nerf, for some reason or another, he rises up to the top. So after the lifesteal nerfs on patch 12.6, that's exactly what happened. He's a little bit more high risk than Jhin, but he also has a lot more carry potential, with his mobility making him more self-sufficient, to the point where he can even handle being jumped on by most divers. Since Lucian is able to snowball the lane super hard, he's especially good to abuse when you have a duo partner that likes to play aggressive supports. Next we have Fiora. We go on pretty often about how disgustingly strong Riven has been for so long, but honestly, Fiora is not all that far behind either. She's consistently been a top 3 champion in a row almost this entire season, and a pretty good chunk of last year as well. With her super high skill cap kit, you're usually able to outplay even the hardest of foes if you have good reaction speed. Her scaling is absolutely nuts, and with the true damage from her passive, she can melt even tanks. At 6 items, there aren't really any champions that can deal with her absurd damage, though odds are you should be able to close out most games out pretty soon once you reach after 3 items. Finishing off our list, we have Khazix. Yeah, I didn't forget about this little cockroach. He's pretty much the Riven of the jungle. No matter how much he's been destroying every other champion in the role, Riot absolutely refuses to nerf him. I can't even remember the last time the Khazix was in the SRO tier, yet his last nerf was on patch 11.22. That's last season. His strength comes from how consistently he can be a massive threat in games. Most assassins rely on being super fed to win games. If they aren't fed, they don't have the damage they need to blow people up in their very front-loaded kits. But Ka doesn't really rely on one huge burst damage to be useful. His main damage ability, his Q, is on a super short cooldown, so he's able to get it off multiple times, using his stealth from his ultimate and Duskblade to buy time in between those casts. Then there's the fact that his W provides insane utility once you evolve it, and also slows the target. And to make matters worse, or better if you're the one playing Khazix, his build can be flexed to deal with tankier foes, with items like Eclipse and Black Cleaver making him a super formidable bruiser duelist assassin hybrid. And that about wraps things up for our predictions for the 15 most broken champions on patch 12.9. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you sub so you never miss out on our content like this. Remember, let us know how you think Senna should be played. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can discuss League further or just hang out and be part of the community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.